Good morning, Blue Jay friends, and thanks for being here. This is Blue Jays versus Them, and I'm your host, Jerry Schwernard. If you're new here, welcome to the show. For my returning listeners, welcome back. Whether you found this podcast by the link I post to either Twitter or Facebook, or whatever podcast provider you're listening from, I want to thank you for tuning in. You can also find me at the website at www.bluejaysversusthem.ca. That's bluejaysvsthem.ca. You can also find my social media links on the website. Each week, I upload episodes to the Buzzsprout website. This site is where the podcast providers upload their episodes. As per my current membership, the episodes are only kept on their servers for 90 days. So if you haven't listened to the first episode titled About Me Introduction, well, it's about to be removed sometime next week. I just thought I'd mention that. Here are a few things we'll cover in this episode. We'll recap last week's episode. We'll do a recap of the final games versus Detroit and the 3 games versus Tampa Bay and the Houston Astros. I'll recap the 50-50 draw prizes for the second homestand. We'll continue our journey through the Blue Jay history and search for our missing home games. I'll discuss some of our history with the New York Yankees in preparation for the upcoming weekend series in New York, and our return home to face the Chicago White Sox and our history with them to preview the upcoming series. As always, I'll wrap up this week's episode with some closing remarks. Last week went a little long, at exactly 20 minutes. I'm going to start providing fewer highlights. I said I would do that in the first episode of the regular season, and then reverted back to doing too many highlights. I've got a bit of a dilemma. On one hand, I don't want to be doing too many highlights and game recaps, and on the other hand, I don't want to only be about the facts and the figures either. Here's where I really could use some listener feedback. After the episode, let me know which you prefer, a few more highlights or what I did for this episode. Last week, I went back and did a recap of the first 10 games of the season, so maybe I can include that after another 10-game interval. Well, that would mean next week I'll do a recap of the previous 10 games, since Game 20 will be tomorrow versus the New York Yankees. Chris Bassitt made his home debut to close out the series versus Detroit. The Blue Jays were up 2-0 in the series and were going for the sweep. Bassitt had a good outing, pitching 6 complete, allowing only 4 hits and striking out 7 batters. He was charged with 2 earned runs and allowed only 3 walks. Our only run in the game came when Cavan Biggio scored in the 3rd inning on a 2-out single by Guerrero. Bassitt was charged with the loss. Detroit's Spencer Turnbull earned the win, and Alex Lang received his first save of the season. The final score, Detroit avoided the sweep, winning 3-1, even though the Jays out-hit the Tigers 8-7. We'll wrap up the season series versus the Tigers at Comerica Park in Detroit for a weekend series starting July 7th. The undefeated Tampa Bay Rays came to town to wrap up the Blue Jays' first homestand of the season. Given our history, as I mentioned last week, and how Tampa had started the season, it seemed that scratching out 1 win out of the 3 games would be a good outcome. The pitching matchup for Game 1 was Jose Barrios versus Drew Rasmussen, who had yet to give up a run, while Barrios wasn't exactly delivering a lot of confidence. Well, I guess Barrios likes it at home. He pitched 5 complete, ending with a comebacker that he tossed over to Vladdy to record the 3rd out. We would later learn that he suffered rib contusions as a result of being hit. X-rays came back negative, and he was expected to make his next start against Houston. Perhaps the tone of the game was set with a leadoff home run by George Springer, and Bo Bichette went 5 for 5. Jose Barrios earned his first win of the season, while Jordan Romano earned his 5th save. Drew Rasmussen was tagged for the loss, as Blue Jays hand Tampa their first loss of the season, scoring 6 runs and only allowing Tampa 3 runs. The Blue Jays out-hit the Rays 10-8 with 1 home run to Tampa Bay's 2 solo home runs in the 7th. In Game 2, Yusei Kikuchi got the start against Rays opener Calvin Foucher, who pitched only 2 2/3 innings. Alejandro Kirk went 2 for 2 with a walk and a hit by pitch. Kikuchi earned his 2nd win of the season, pitching 6 innings, allowing only 1 run on 4 hits, and striking out 9 batters and walking 1. Yeah, this pitch clock thing seems to be working for him. Jordan Romano earned his 6th save of the season, and the Rays reliever, Trevor Kelly, was given the loss. The final score, the Blue Jays win the second game 5-2, even though the Rays out-hit the Jays 8-7, including the game's only home run. The Blue Jays were poised to take an improbable sweep of the series, with Alek Manoah getting the start against Tampa Bay's Shane McClanahan. Manoah didn't have his good stuff on Sunday, allowing 4 walks and 7 earned runs on 9 hits, including a 3-run homer in the 5th. Manoah was tagged with the loss, pitching only 4 2/3 innings. McClanahan earned the win, going 6 innings, striking out 6, and only allowing 1 earned run on 4 hits and 2 walks, allowing the Rays to avoid the sweep. The final score, the Blue Jays lost 8-1 and were out-hit 11-6. Although they do hand the Rays their first 2 losses of the season by taking 2 of the 3 games. The Jays wrap up the 6-game homestand with a 4-2 record and a 10-6 record heading to Houston. The Blue Jays and Tampa Bay will next meet up for 4 games starting May 22nd. Heading into Houston, our projected starting pitchers were Gausman, Bassett, and Berrios. Although our history at Minute Maid Park would suggest a 2-1 series loss, our starting pitching suggested hope for a better outcome. Kevin Gausman got the start for Game 1 on Monday, and yeah, it didn't go well. Houston roughed him up for 7 runs in the first inning, capped off by a 3-run homer before he could record the final 2 outs. Matt Chapman scored the Jays' first run with a 1-out home run in the top of the 2nd, and Santiago Espinal would get his first of the season in the 8th. Gausman would take the loss, going only 4 2/3, charged with 8 runs, 7 earned, on 7 hits with 2 home runs. He did strike out 5 batters and walked only 2. Christian Javier earned the win, pitching 5 innings, striking out 5 batters, allowing 1 run on 3 hits, and giving up only 2 walks. The final score, the Blue Jays lost 9-2, being out-hit 10-5. In Game 2, Chris Bassett might have given his best start as a Blue Jay. Although he only struck out 5 in his 6 1/3 innings, he didn't allow a run, giving up only 3 hits and a walk. A 1-out home run by Guerrero and a 2-out home run by Chapman in the 4th gave the Jays a 2-0 lead. Bassett earned his 2nd win of the season, with Romero picking up his 7th save. The final score, the Blue Jays win 4-2 and even out the 3-game series at 1. Both teams had 8 hits, with the difference being the 2 long balls by Vladdy and Chapman. Jose Berrios got the call to wrap up the series on Wednesday. He pitched 7 innings and only allowed 2 earned runs in the 2nd inning. Berrios only allowed 3 hits, including the 2 RBI double, and striking out 3 with only 1 walk. Luis Garcia earned the win and Jose Berrios took the loss. The final score, Toronto lost 8-1, and the Astros out-hit the Jays 8-4. The Blue Jays only lose their 2nd series of the season and will head to New York with a record of 11-8. We will next play Houston when they wrap up the season series in Toronto for a 4-game series starting June 5th. Last week I provided the prizes for the 2nd homestand, and since we're not there yet, I'll remind you what's available with an update on the April 30th jackpot, last week valued at $184,185. April 24th, a $1,000 WestJet vacation gift card, and on April 25th, a Blue Jays memorabilia bundle package. April 26th is the Skydome Original Stadium seats, although I suspect they may or may not have the Rogers Center label on them, but the picture shows Skydome. April 28th, Jose Bautista signed bat flip poster. April 29th, another $10,000 cash prize. And on April 30th, April homestand jackpot. As I said last week, it could be over $500,000. Well, folks, at the time of this recording, the jackpot is now almost $1 million at $936,155. The first jackpot is combined over the first 2 homestands, which started with our home opener versus the Tigers and then the Rays. It will be carried over for the series versus the White Sox on the 24th and on the 28th versus the Seattle Mariners, and the return of Ricky Ray and Teoscar Hernandez. Ticket sales for the 50-50 draw will close on April 30th at 10 p.m. Eastern. I will provide a link in the description on my website or go to jayscare.com. I know I've said I would provide the winning numbers, but for legal reasons, I think it's safer just to provide you with the website information where the winning numbers and correlating prizes are posted, which I'll leave in the link in the description on my website. The winning number for the grand prize jackpot will be announced at noon Eastern on May 1st, 2023 on the Jays Care social media channels and jayscare.com. Last week we looked back and went from the 1984 season and stopped at the strike-shortened season of 1994. By the end of the 1993 regular season, in which we went on to win the second of back-to-back World Series, the Blue Jays had played 2,697 total games. And if you don't recall, 1,350 of them were played on the road, while leaving only 1,347 to be played in front of the hometown crowd. As a side note, on September 19th, the Blue Jays completed a 3-game sweep of the Twins in Minnesota. It gave them a season record at the time of 86-63, but more importantly, it gave the Blue Jays as a franchise their 1,342nd win and brought the franchise to 500 win percentage for the first time since 1977. They would finish the 1993 season with a 95-67 record, giving them a franchise record of 1,351 wins and 1,346 losses. But I'll save the overall team records for another time. Back to 1994. Because of the players' strike, the season ended abruptly after the Blue Jays only played 115 games. An uneven number, so there must be an imbalance of home and away games. Well, there was. We played 59 games at Skydome and only 56 games on the road, perfectly evening out our previous imbalance of 3 games. We now played 1,406 games both on the road and at home. We won't find any imbalance in the late starting 1995 season either. Playing only a 144-game season, the schedule makers managed to have the Jays play 72 games both on the road and at home. The next 2 seasons were both uneventful as far as scheduling anomalies go, but in 1998, the Jays played an extra game. After 163 games, the Blue Jays played 81 games at home and 82 games away. Once again, things wouldn't change until the 2001 season. For some unknown reason, even though the Jays played a regular 162-game season, there were 82 games played at home and only 80 games played away. This gave the Blue Jays a 1-game surplus at home with 1,965 in Toronto and 1,964 games away. Next week we'll pick up in 2004 when we only played 161 games. Will it even out? Find out next week. Friday, the Blue Jays will begin a 3-game series in the Bronx. By the way, this game will only be available to watch on Apple TV. You can sign up for a free trial subscription, but you have to remember to cancel if you don't want to be charged at the end of the trial period. You can listen on the Fan 590 or on sportsnet.ca. With 699 total games played against the Yankees, our overall record isn't that great. Since 1977, the Yankees have won 384 games and only lost 315 to Toronto. 69 games above 500. The Blue Jays have only won 148 of the 315 wins in Yankee Stadium, whereas the Yankees have won 202 games of the 350 total games played in New York. Yeah, that's a lot of abstract numbers to take in. I'll put it in the form of winning percentage. At Yankee Stadium, the Blue Jays are 236. Only going back to the 2017 season, the Jays have only 22 wins to the 29 losses at Yankee Stadium, or a 231 win percentage. The Jays went 8-11 for the 2022 season and 5-5 in the Bronx, winning 3 of the last 4 games. So there is a measure of hope to be had. Kikuchi will get the start on Friday. Alek Manoah needs a bounce-back start from Saturday. He has pitched well in New York, though. Kevin Gausman will also be looking for a better start after his last outing in Monday. The Yankees will wrap up their 3-game series versus the Angels, hoping for a series win with Nestor Cortez starting later today. History would suggest the Yankees take 2 out of the 3 games. As any Blue Jay fan knows, our very first game was a 9-5 win over the Chicago White Sox at Exhibition Stadium on April 7, 1977. Well, I'm guessing somehow that set the tone between the two franchises. Of the 420 total games played against each other, the Blue Jays own a 217 and 203 record. We haven't been very gracious hosts over the years either, winning 118 of the 212 games played in Toronto. Although since 2017, we only have a slight advantage with a 9-7 record. Last season, we won 4 of the 6 games, sweeping the 3 games in Toronto. So far this season, the White Sox are 7-12, losing 2 of the 3 games versus the Phillies, and will spend the weekend in Tampa Bay. while it might not be a stretch to say a 3-game sweep to start our second homestand, but I'll err on the side of caution and predict a series win of 2 of 3. That should do it for this episode. Join me next Thursday as we look back at our weekend series in the Bronx versus the Yankees and our 3 games versus the White Sox. I will provide any updates for the 50-50 jackpot prize. We can resume our journey through Blue Jays history with the 2004 season and preview our series versus the Seattle Mariners and a 4-game series at Fenway Park to start a 9-game road trip. If you've enjoyed listening to me and found it interesting, then let me know by reacting to the post I leave on either Twitter or Facebook, or leave a comment, retweet, and share. I guess if you didn't like it, you can let me know that too. I'm trying my best to engage you, the listener, so I'm going to re-ask the question I asked earlier. I made a slight change to the recaps. Did you notice any change? Did it improve the way you perceive the recap? You can comment on Blue Jays vs. Them website or find me on Twitter or Facebook. As always, I've been your humble host, Jerry Schwinard, and you've been listening to Blue Jays vs. Them. Once again, I want to thank you for spending your time with me. Join me next Thursday and every Thursday of the regular season. Until then, take care of yourself and take care of your loved ones. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and let's go Blue Jays. Let's go. Bye for now.